Hello, everybody. Riell here for this next episode of This Week in Housing San Diego, episode number 5, Friday, May 22nd. We're supposed to have a guest on today. They ended up having to cancel just a little bit ago. Had some family stuff pop up that absolutely was more important than coming on this Zoom show. So Mark will hopefully be joining us next week, Friday the 29th, I believe it is going to talk about residential land, purchasing land, developing it, all that type of good stuff. I know there are a lot of you out there who have absolutely had a thought of, I'm going to buy a piece of land and build my dream house. Did get a question about that via social media, I think it was. I will get into that a little bit from my end, representing buyers and sellers. We'll go from there. So, all right, let's go ahead and pull up these slides. We'll just get straight into it as it may be. All right, so episode number 5 with me, your host, Riell. So here we go. All right, want to start off talking about the economy, right? We had some new reports that came out. We've seen this slide. There aren't any updates. I just want to make sure that if this is your first time watching, that you are up to speed with the previous 4 episodes and the data and the information that we've been putting out. What we're looking at here is the predictions from the major financial houses or institutions about what is going to happen with the recession or the repression that we are currently heading towards. The recession, we are in a repression without a doubt. So basically, we know that the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with negative GDP. We've only had one that's been recorded. That would be Q1 of this year. We're gonna have to get through Q2, so that's April, May, June. It means at the end of July is when we're actually gonna have the data. So we're gonna have to wait until July or August before we can formally say that we're in a recession. All right, so the good news about this is the major financial institutions here in the US and across the globe are predicting a V-shaped recovery. That has not changed. Previous episodes, we've talked about the different types of recoveries and people making up names and doing the best that they can to describe what's going on. V-shape is an actual term. It actually means something other than what someone is trying to say. So when we look at Q2, we have all the major financial institutions, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all predicting massive GDP losses. We're already seeing that. We're already feeling it. We get into Q3, all the financial institutions minus Bank of America are predicting positive GDP. That is the recovery. Q4, all the major institutions are predicting it. Bank of America, negative in Q3, the largest increase in Q4. All right, so there is no change to that. I want to start there before we get into the unemployment data. All right, so from here, there are 3 different sciences that we have to take into account when we're talking about the recovery from a pandemic. The first one is the business science, and that is what we're hearing a lot about. The economy has to get restarted. If it doesn't, we're going to have a major issue. All right, so when we're looking at the science, looking at the history of it, we're wanting to see how have economies rebounded from similar slowdowns or pandemics in the past. The second is the health science. We've been inundated with this since March. We're all well aware of the health science. All right. One thing that is very, very clear, right, is that there is a very real chance that there will not be a vaccine for this. There is still not a flu vaccine that is even close to being reliable. All right. So if people are holding out and they're going to insist upon the stay at home or the quarantine until there is a pandemic, until there's a vaccine, there's a very real chance you might be holding out for a few years. All right, so just keep that in the back of your mind. The administration has project whatever it is, the Manhattan-like project to try to get a vaccine, and that's wonderful. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. We'll have to see how it goes. Everybody should obviously be hopeful that that's going to happen. The third one is the social science, right? And this is the one that we are dealing with more and more, especially in Southern California, throughout the country. This is the people behind what's going on, right? So the definition that we have up on the screen is after all the businesses are fully operational, which we're not there in California. We're getting there in San Diego, thankfully, right? Restaurants are opening, retail is opening. We're moving in the right direction. once all the businesses are fully operational, once the restaurants are back on with whatever the social distancing and et cetera is, how long will it take for Americans to return to normal consumption? Restaurants, stuff like that are going to be relatively easy. But when we start talking about movies, sporting events, flying, right? All three of these types of sciences have to be accounted for. And if you're listening to one person who is only taking one of the three angles, you really need to know that. We're hearing a lot of scientists that are out talking purely about number two. All right. And just so we don't all think that Ryan's some moron standing up here talking about science, right? I do have two master's degrees, one in organic and biological chemistry, a second in exercise physiology and biomechanics. So I do have a little bit of a background, as it may be, in terms of the science. Okay. When you're listening to somebody who is only talking from a health science perspective, you need to keep that in mind. You have to know that and understand that. When you're talking to somebody who does not care about what the health science says and only cares about the business, you also want to know that. All right, so these are the three different sciences that have to be blended by the federal government, the state governments, the county governments, and the city governments to all make this happen. And that is the big challenge that we're going through. All right, so here's the updated U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics weekly unemployment filings. This came out yesterday morning. 2.4 million more people applied for unemployment benefits as of May 16th. All right, so we can see we very clearly have already hit the peak. That was at the end of March, beginning of April, and we're coming down. All right, so these are the numbers. Nobody likes them, but here we are. All right, so this is an interesting study from the Becker-Friedman Institute for Economics at the University of Illinois, Chicago. 68% of the unemployed workers who are eligible for unemployment insurance will receive benefits that exceed their lost earnings. They got a pay raise. 68%. 20% of eligible unemployed workers will receive benefits at least twice as large as their lost earnings. The CARES Act, which is what is providing all of this, is actually providing income expansion rather than replacement for most of the unemployed workers. This is a potential issue. This is going to the business science. There have been a plethora, there's your $5 word of the day, of reports that have come out from across the country where business owners are having a very hard time getting their workers to come back to work because they get paid more by the federal government to sit on their couch, right? That is a potential problem, and it is something that everybody needs to keep their eye on. All right, so when we're talking now more specifically about San Diego, right? In the previous 4 episodes, we have spoken about San Diego, but we really haven't dug into the numbers, and that simply is because there aren't that many of them available. So a lot of these are predictions or extrapolations, primarily from Sandag. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is a chart that is very, very powerful because it's comparing a lot of things. On the left in red, that's 1933. That's the Great Depression. Orange is 11%. That's 2010. That's the Great Recession. Here is all the San Diego specific numbers. Pre-COVID, 3.1% unemployment, and you can see that we have now worked ourselves up to 30.1%. It's a lot of people that are not able to work right now in San Diego County or in the San Diego area, all right? Let me show you the other side of that coin though. 30% of the people in our city are not able to work right now. 70% of us are. It's your choice how you want to look at that. But 70% of the people that live with us in our area, they're working. They're making things happen. Let's take a look and see what could be coming after that. All right, so the estimates from Sandag, as of May 9th, 510,000 people not working. It's a lot of people. 460,000 of those are associated with the coronavirus, according to Sandag. These are their estimates. The most affected zip code, Logan Heights, 42% unemployment. The least affected, Rancho Bernardo West, that's Del Sur, Forest Ranch, that type of area, 22.8%. And these are the real world numbers as best that Sandag can estimate. So let's put this in a little bit of perspective. That's some gloomy news that we just had right there. Let's compare this at a bigger scale to the Great Depression and the Great Recession, right? We need to take a look at the depth and we need to take a look at the length. Here's the Great Depression, 25%. Move it over to the right, it took 12 years to get back to where they were. That's a lot of depth and a lot of length. When we look at the Great Recession, 9 years, 10%. When we take a look, now these are national numbers. When we take a look at Goldman Sachs projections, they're projecting 25% nationally, or at 14.7 right now. That number's probably going to go up in the next month. All right. So when we're looking at what we're going through right now, the Great Repression, a lot of depth. We just saw that with the San Diego specific numbers. Now we're looking back at the national stage. 25% of the country won't have a job. 75% will. And that 25% is going to decrease. All the experts are projecting as early as Q3, August. All right, so a little perspective there for you. Taking a look at some of the newer data that's come out, this again is from Sandag. This is the projections in lost sales in San Diego. This is money that is not coming back, right? Maybe it gets spent in the future. Maybe tourists do come here. But in general, this is the real world, what the businesses here are going through, right? So when we look on the left, businesses selling recreational products have lost 80% of their sales. They used to make $10, they're now making $2. It's a big deal. Miscellaneous transportation down 80%, apparel 75%, dining down 75%, auto sales, new and used, down 75%, service stations or gas stations 65%, department stores 50%, furniture and appliance stores. You can see what we have going on there. This is what it looks like in terms of the industries that have been hit the hardest in San Diego. We could logically extrapolate out that the people that are working in recreational products or retail, apparel or retail, dining or the service industry, we know these people are already coming back to work. We can see that. Turn on the news. It's there. All right, so here's a very good quote for you. This is Dr. Frank Knopfhaft with CoreLogic. Look for the housing sector to recover before the rest of the economy and lead other industries into expansion. That's why I'm doing this show every week. That's why I spend the amount of time to put it together, to do the research. This is why I bring on high quality guests, is because the housing market is going to play a very, very pivotal role in the national, state, county, and city recovery as we come out of the Great Repression. All right, so is this going to be 2008 all over again? All right, we've addressed this many times. I've summed it all up here on one slide. I want to hit this one more time for everybody. The answer, short answer, no, it's not, as we stand right now. If you want to drag this out into August, into September, different story. All right, but number one, homes for sale or month worth of inventory. We have 1.8 months worth of inventory in San Diego County today. We had 8.2 months in 2006. That's just supply. Number two is appreciation rates, right? From 2000 to 2005, they ranged from 6.5 to 12.5%. From 2014 to 19, they ranged from 4.4 to 6.4%. Far more reasonable, far more under control. Number three is home equity, and this is probably the biggest of the three. Average mortgage in the United States at the beginning of the year had $177,000 worth of equity. In 2008, the housing market lost 20% of its value. It was a 20% depreciation. If we magically depreciated 25% tomorrow, that $177,000 worth of equity drops down to $125,000 to $135,000. People aren't going to walk away from that. They just absolutely are not going to walk away from it. And so what does that mean? That means that if there is a home where somebody is having an issue and they, for whatever reason, can't make the payments, it's not going to foreclosure. It's not going to a short sale. They're simply going to sell the house at market value. They're going to pay off what they owe, and they're going to keep their equity. They're going to keep their $125,000. The second thing, cash out equity that you see there, leading into the Great Recession, Americans had cashed out around $824 billion of their equity. The last few years leading into 2020, $232 billion. Americans learned their lesson in 2008. Number 4 is the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. You can see the higher the number, the easier it is to get money. The lower the number, the harder it is. In 2006, it was 868.7. As of Thursday morning, 133.5. Here's number 5, home value predictions. All right, so this is using, I believe it's Goldman Sachs numbers. The light blue is pre-COVID, dark blue post-COVID. And so before the coronavirus came around, they were projecting 4.7% appreciation this year. That's been downgraded to 3%. They were projecting 3.8% appreciation next year. That's now been upgraded to 4.2. There wasn't a projection for 2022 pre-COVID, but now post-COVID there is, and that's at 4.6%. That's wonderful news for anybody who owns a home or for anybody who is looking to buy a home. Your investment, and I hate when people use that word because I'm primarily talking about those of you looking to buy a primary residence. That is not an investment, ladies and gentlemen. It is your house. You're buying it to live in it, to use it, to love it, to make memories, to raise a family. That's what you're buying a house for. An investment property is one that you're never going to live in. That's an investment, and that's a math equation. All right. So those of you that are on the fence about buying, you were getting ready to buy and the coronavirus came around, you were thinking, hey, summer, we're gonna get into it in June, right? And now everybody went, boop, pause button. Okay, I get it. No problem there. It's good news for you guys because your money that you're putting into your house, that you're gonna raise a family in, it's gonna continue to appreciate. It's gonna be safe. That's the big take home. All right, so let's dig more into the real estate on the ground. This is San Diego specific. We've changed up the graphs a little bit. We used to have the neat little line graph that went through there. We've moved it over to the bar. We now have enough data that we can actually put the bar graph in. All right, on the left, new listings. The red line, that's approximately the 19th. That's where the stay-at-home order came. The gray area is approximately the month of April. So we have March, April, good portion of May. Same thing on the right-hand side. We started the year off in San Diego County with a historically low number of homes for sale. Coronavirus came around and that problem has now been exacerbated. The rest of the country is now feeling that problem. So what we're looking at, the main thing with the new listings I want you to see is as we have moved from April into May, we are now outlisting in terms of the number of homes than we were at the beginning of March. That is a great sign. If you are somebody who has contemplated selling your house, if you want to help this country, you want to help this economy come out of the repression, put your house on the market, sell it. That's going to stimulate the real estate market. We have buyer upon buyer upon buyer stacked up. I have 15 to 20 buyers that I'm working with, stacked up like airplanes waiting to land at an airport. We're just waiting for a house to show up that they like. There's next to nothing on the market here in San Diego. You want to sell your house? Now would be a wonderful time to do it. Call me, text me, email me. I can tell you how we do it safely. When we're talking about pending listings, remember, these are the ones that have accepted an offer into escrow. We were doing very, very well. Stay-at-home order, drop down to nothing. You can see the gradual increase. You can see the definitive increase over the last 4 weeks. That is a very, very good, healthy sign for the real estate market right there, all right? All right, so let's look more at some May projections. Pending listings. We're projecting 2688. That's a 40% increase from last month. 22% less than last year in the month of May. New listings, 22% increase over April, 32% down from last May. Active listings, an 11% increase from April, 24% down from 2019. Closed sales, 1414. That's the lowest number ever recorded, if that happens, in San Diego County. 35% down from last month, 59% down from the prior year. Keep something in mind with the closed sales. That number is a little bit misleading. Remember, a property has to be listed, it has to accept an offer and go from active to pending, and then it has to go through the escrow process. Escrows can be very short. I would say the normal escrow in San Diego is 30 days. So anything that we're seeing closing in the month of May, escrow was opened in April. It very well could have been opened in May. It could have even been, or I'm sorry, not May, in March. It very well could have even been February, depending on the length of the escrow. Right. So this is a lagging indicator. Right. So it is absolutely behind. And what this is showing you is the effect of the coronavirus on the real estate market in the month of April. Here's the last one, median sales price. We're projecting it to be 600,000, no change from the last month, 4% higher than it was a year ago. All right. So those are your May projections for the real estate market here in San Diego County. This is Mark Fleming, chief economist with First American. Historically low mortgage rates, as well as new technology that allows buyers to house hunt from afar, seems to have lifted the housing market from April's low point. The housing market is showing early signs of resilience amid the pandemic. Good news. This is Diana Olick from CNBC. If mortgage demand is an indicator, buyers are coming back to the housing market far faster than anticipated, despite coronavirus shutdowns and job losses. Now, Diana had obviously not been tuning into This Week in Housing San Diego, or else she would have known that it's been there the whole time. But Diana, welcome to the game. Look, glad to have you on the team now. Here's Freddie Mac. As states reopen, we're seeing purchase demand improve remarkably fast. My spelling is not so hot today, is it? All good signs right there, other than my spelling. All right, this is a graph or some images that we went through last week. I want to go through them again. I want you guys to see in a more graphic way what I'm talking about with demand. All right, so what we're looking at, these numbers are from Showing Time. Right? That's a national service that allows people to set up showings for properties, and they track all that, obviously. In February, on the left is the seller traffic. Dark blue, heavy, strong traffic. Light blue, stable. Gray is weak traffic. On the right is the buyer traffic in February, all pre-COVID. You can see selling market definitely starting to heat up. Right? If you look, you're tending to see Arizona, Nevada, Texas, a lot of states that tend to be a little bit warmer. Right? Nothing in California. Right? When we look at the buyer, it's a very different picture. There are buyers all over the place, ready to go. Coronavirus comes around. There's your change. Seller traffic evaporated. Buyer traffic decreased dramatically. Still a lot of buyers out there. Lots and lots of buyers out there. All right, so here's another graph by Showing Time. All right, so this is tracking showings from the beginning of the year. And it's comparing what we have this year to last year. So if we take a look at the dark blue line across the top, that's 2019. The orange line is 2020. We can see very clearly where showings plummeted. And we can also see that they are absolutely on their way back up. This is a this is a California graph. This is the all of California. All right. So very, very good. Very, very good sign. So here's the bottom line. Housing market is in a position to pull the economy out of this repression. I know that might sound strange. That might sound even hokey for those of you that got burned in 2008. If you're having doubts, head over to my YouTube channel. Video after video after video, you can watch the progression as we've gone through weeks, breaking down the economy, unemployment, what the expert projections are, what long-term reliable resources are saying. Housing market is in that position right now. The buyers are ready. We need sellers. We need to get sellers to list their properties. That very well could bring the entire economy out of this repression even faster. All right, so let's get to some of the questions. I'm only going to do a few of them today. So all real estate oriented. Next week, Mark is going to be back. He'll be able to join us. Again, he had some family stuff that popped up that absolutely is more important than joining us on this video call. So, all right, we'll get into some of the questions that were sent in for him next week. So here we go. First question, when are home prices going to fall? Not in the near future, based off of everything that we're seeing. I've laid out what we're basically looking at today, right? You can go back to the YouTube channel. You can check out all the videos and see it's all laid out there for you. I don't see housing prices coming down. They've actually been very steadily increasing since November. Record highs are very, very close to them month after month. If you're going to sit on the sideline and you're going to wait for the prices to come down, you're going to miss the boat again. We've had 4%, 5% appreciation from 2019 to 2020. If you would have bought that home, the $1 million home in 2019, would have cost you 5% less, $50,000 less. Pricing isn't coming down in San Diego in the near future. If anything gives off that indication, I'm going to be one of the first people to point that out to you. There's nothing indicating that, guys. Second question, how easy is it to buy a parcel of land and build my own home? All right, so this was a question that I don't know that it was sent in directly from Mark, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my answer as somebody who has worked with buyers in the past and understands how this process works. A lot of people think that they need to head out, find that piece of land. All right, cool. It's 1 acre, it's a half acre, a quarter acre, whatever it is. And then they try to figure it out from there. That's skipping the first two steps, which are a whole heck of a lot more important than finding a piece of land. All right. So step number one, if you're looking to build your dream home, you need to have the home designed by an architect. That's going to cost you money out of pocket. I would say that you could buy prefabricated plans online, cost you $500, $1,000, couple $1,000, very inexpensive. But if you want to hire an architect to design your dream home for you, you'll be lucky to get out of that for under 10 to 15 grand. Depending on the size of the house, you're probably looking at $50,000 to $100,000 just to pay the architect to design the plans for you. That can't be financed, ladies and gentlemen. That comes out of your pocket. If you don't know what you're wanting to build, we have a problem. All of this is coming to, can I afford to buy a piece of land and build my own house? A lot of people think that that's less expensive. At the end of the day, it's not, and it takes a lot longer. All right, so step one, have the house designed by an architect. Step number two is going to be, what goes in the house? What's the kitchen going to look like? Are we going quartz? Are we going granite? Are we going marble? What's the flooring look like? What do the fixtures look like? That all has to be laid out. You guys want to know what that's going to cost. So now you're hiring a designer. Can't be financed. You're paying them out of pocket. You're going to need to have a very clear idea of how much is it going to cost to actually build the house. The architect doesn't build it. The architect draws pictures. So you need to talk to a designer to figure out what you want in the house. You have to pay them. And then you're going to have to find out what a builder is going to charge you to actually build the property. That's not super expensive to figure that out, depending on who you're using. But all these steps have to take place in order to determine how much is it even going to cost to build the house. Once we have all that figured out, now we go look for land. Because we know what we want to build. We know what the costs are. That's going to give us our budget to go look for land. So we go look, we find a piece of land. Now comes the hard part. Now you have to go find a lender who's going to make two different loans to you. Number one is going to be buying the land. Number two is going to be a construction loan to actually build the house. And in order to have any chance of getting either of those loans, especially the construction loan, you're going to have to essentially turn into them a business plan. You're going to have to tell them every single thing that you're going to do. You're going to have to list out every single person that you're going to use: the architect, the designer, the contractor, the builder, the plumber, the roofer, all that stuff. All of that. The bank, the lender, is going to vet every single part of that. And if they're not comfortable, no construction loan. So those are your 4 steps. That's the most efficient order to do it in. A lot of people say, well, hold on, Ryan. Location is most important to me. Okay, I understand. So you're willing to have a 1,200 square foot home on a little itty bitty lot that isn't the location you want. We don't need a 4,000 square foot home anymore. Okay, let's say that the size of the house is fluctuated, that it's variable. You know, hey, Ryan, I'd be okay with 1,500 square feet. I'd be okay with 3,000 square feet. Okay, sounds good. If you're going to go out and look at land first, you're going to have to go out and identify a parcel. You're then going to have to bring people out, if it hasn't already been done, to determine, are the utilities already run to it or do we need to? And what's the actual buildable space? Once you've identified that, you're going to have a decent idea about what the property costs, but you still don't know what it's going to cost to actually build the home. That's why we like to go step 1, what does the house look like? What does the architect do? Step number 2, what is the designer and the builder going to charge you? Then let's go find land. It would really suck if you found the ideal piece of land, got all fired up and excited about that, went to an architect and said, hey, I need to design a house. And he said, cool, 45 grand. And you're like, oh, schmackers, how do we finance that? To which he says, you can't, sorry. Back to square one. We'll get more into this next week with Mark, right? But those are the basics. Those are the basics. I talk with a lot of people on a weekly basis that are contemplating doing this. All right. Number 3, why are home prices increasing during the pandemic? In part, supply and demand. The supply is extremely low. The demand is not as crazy high as it has been due to the pandemic, but the demand is still there. That's the easiest, simple answer I can give you. Next one, what's going on with mortgages? I've heard they're hard to get right now. I would refer you back to episode number 1 where we had Andrew Paul on. He's the senior branch manager with Benchmark Mortgage. He talked a little bit about that during that show. But basically, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. 2 types of loan: conforming, non-conforming. Right? These are based off of a county limit. The San Diego County conforming loan limit is approximately $701,000. Anything that is under that, relatively straightforward to get a loan. Anything that is over that now becomes what's called a jumbo loan. Now they start to become a lot more difficult to get, right? A lot of the big branches, the big banks, have absolutely tightened up their requirements to get a jumbo loan. The credit score requirements are higher. The debt to income ratio has to be lower. The percent down is now higher, right? It is absolutely more difficult right now to get a jumbo loan. That's anything over $701,000. All right. Of the 15 to 20 buyers that I mentioned earlier that I have stacked up and ready to go, I'd say about half of them are facing this right now, where they are talking with lenders. They're scrambling to try to make sure that their financing is secure. All right. So if you are looking to buy over that $701,000 price point, talk to your lender, see where you're at. It would really suck if you went out and found the perfect home, called up the lender and said, hey, John, I'm ready to go. And he's like, ooh, sorry, can't give you that loan. That would suck. All right, let's do 2 more. Next one is, are in-person showings finally taking place again? Yes, they are. They have been taking place. They just have not been as readily available. They have not been as accessible. Sellers are putting up precautions, as it may be, to protect themselves, their family, people coming into their home. All right. So are we seeing them opening up more and more? Yes, we are starting to see that. There still is the car form PEAD, P-E-A-D, that you're going to have to fill out. It's basically acknowledging that you're going into somebody else's house in the middle of a pandemic. That form has to be filled out. Masks, gloves, booties, all that good stuff is being worn. They are far more doable at this point. So if that is something that you have more questions about, hit me up. We can dig more into that with your specific scenario. All right, last question for today. How will you keep me and my family safe if we list the home? All right, that's a great question. Basically, it's going to be the same answer as how we would keep a buyer safe. There are precautions that we can take: face masks, gloves, booties. We minimize the number of people that go into the house. We minimize the number of people that are in the house. That's on the buyer side. On the selling side, we simply enforce that. If you want to come into the house, you have to fill out the car form PEAD, no problem. You have to show us a pre-approval letter. You have to show us proof of funds. There are some properties that we have up in Carmel Valley that if you want to go in it, write an offer. Write a reasonable offer. Then we'll let you in the house, right? So there's a lot of different strategies. And at the end of the day, here's the best answer I would give you. If you're working with me, my team, or the Wanabo group, we're going to make sure that you're protected at all times. That is one of our first and foremost obligations to anybody that we're going to work with. That is largely going to be left up to you and your family to decide what that looks like. If that means that you want them to fill out the car form PEAD, they need to have pre-approval, proof of funds, and submit an offer before you let them in, we'll make that happen. We have always shot videos, 3D tours, tons of photos, right? Everybody else is finally getting on the bandwagon with that. So if somebody wants to see this property, they're going to have an extremely good idea of what the property looks like before they write an offer. So we're going to keep you safe. We're going to leave it up to you. We're going to give you options. We'll counsel you appropriately. You guys make the decision. And as long as we can make it happen, we will. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it. A little bit shorter today, under an hour for sure. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. If you guys have any questions that pop up as you're going through the week that you would like to have answered next Friday, type them in on the Facebook, send me a direct message, call, text, or email, whatever it may be. Would love to answer any of the questions that you guys have out there. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe and have a good time.